Hey, I'm Delise.
And I'm Jenny.
We know that parenting comes in seasons, and even the smallest wins deserve a happy dance.
Join us as we chat with moms in every stage of the parenting journey, fixing our eyes on Jesus each step of the way.
This is Blessings and Motherhood, because we believe that you can hold tissues and confetti at the same time. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to introduce to you a new friend of mine, Yating. So Yating, hi, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so for people who might not know who you are, would you just introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Yating Haller, and I live close to Purdue University at Central Indiana. I'm the book rep for CC Central Indiana, and I've been CC and homeschool mom since my son was 4. We started homeschool at the very beginning, and this is my 7th year of doing it.
That's so great. So I met Yating because she's been in town helping us record some things for Practicum. And during this time, it's been so fun because I've gotten to hear you tell, I don't even know how many stories, like a million stories. And I loved what you were saying the other day about ownership and really committing to the curriculum and making it your own and kind of becoming a part of the legacy and what you're creating, participating in your child's education. And I would love to start there. So what did that look like for you to transition from just focusing on the content to really making it a personal commitment for yourself?
So I was born in Taiwan and I grew up in Singapore. So homeschooling is such a novelty idea there. Growing up, we don't think that homeschool is for the masses. So I went to a traditional school of class size of 64 and big class, highly emphasis on academic achievement. And your answers always have to match the answer keys. And if not, there's a lot of shame that's brought onto you. Your family desire you to do well. Your teacher expect you to get an A every time. Highly, highly pressurized. So when I started thinking about going to homeschooling, I have no background. I have no reference point. Even though I lived in America for 20 years, I have no reference point of what American public school looks like and what grade should be learning what. And English is actually a foreign language to me. This is not my mother tongue. And so I'm just thinking, okay, well, if I don't have a reference point, I need to latch myself onto something that's structured, that is wholesome. And I went to the CC First open house while I was pregnant, and I never looked back. I was a fearful mom, and I can be very honest with that because I don't know any reference point and I don't know anything about homeschooling. So I just want to latch myself onto a curriculum company.
And can I just say, for those who might not know, you were working in higher education. So although she didn't know anything about homeschooling, I mean, you understood education.
I can handle
a doctorate degree.
I can handle the older kids.
Yeah,
it's the young toddlers that are like, what is going on in your brain? Yes. And so when I look at the CC curriculum, I was a new homeschool mama wanting some structure. So CC kind of fed into that, but there's a lot of fear behind that. The fear of I'm going to mess up my kids.
Sure.
I don't know how to educate them, that they may not be able to go to universities because the mindset is that all successful kids have to go into college, right?
Right.
And so assessment becomes really important to me, or how do I evaluate them? How do I make sure that, they get all the things that's possibly ever to get? And so CC drawn to me, but it was not out of conviction. It's because of the contents. Okay. And C for content, C for conviction, just at CC. We like a lot of letter C. And so I was drawn to CC first because of the content. I think it's superb. I think it's, it's just exemplary, but then it was coming out from a place of my fear. So I would go to a community day on every week, thinking that the tutor is doing the best thing that she could do. I can never do that. So I'm thrusting myself and my kids to CC. But if I'm really honest with it, it's because of the content. And then as the years go by, I feel like my heart, as the more I get to learn about classical education and the pedagogy and the trivium behind it, and then I became a tutor. And those are the things that actually transform my thinking. And I'm a deep thinker. And so as I was thinking about it, another C word came up as conviction. So my love for CC transformed from just loving the content and just being a consumer of content to being convicted that, yes, God created my kids to learn, and there's a natural way of learning, which is the trivium. And I need to trust God in this. And I can tailor the program. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to end all, be all. I can tailor. There's a lot of flexibility in CC. And what everybody's been telling you about the stick in the sand, all you need is a guide and yourself and maybe a tin whistle for 6 weeks. Yeah, and that's true because in 2021, my family, because of my husband's job, we were transported into a new territory in Connecticut for 3 weeks. And 5 of us and the dog lived in a 200 square foot hotel room for 3 weeks. It was interesting because I had to leave the community that I happened to just love, and that's my security blanket, that's my support system week after week. I left that. And then to someplace that I thought, oh, maybe I can connect and plug myself into another CC, which is great. I think that because CC is global and there's community everywhere, there's instant communities there. But for some reason, I think it's right out of COVID, that community wasn't available to us. And I had to homeschool out of a hotel room. Our PE classes is that dingy swimming pool. Every day at 2 p.m., I would transport my kids and go downstairs to the basement. That's where the swimming pool was. And we were just doing laps around the swimming pool. There were carpets around the swimming pool. And it was an experience, but it also is an experience that let me believe that, yes, homeschool is so flexible. The very reason my kids doesn't have to be withdrawn out of school or have to miss anything, and I can continue to teach them.
So you said something a few minutes ago about the consumer mindset, and we were talking about this the other day, and I think my generation is guilty of this, and we don't mean to, but it's just that we're expecting, because everywhere else in the world, when we buy something, when we purchase something, when we come to an event, it's all packaged for us, it's all done for us, and all we need to do is show up, take it in, and walk away, right? And that's it. So we're applying that same experience to our school and to our education process with our child. And it's been really detrimental because especially classical education, but education period, it can't really be fully enjoyed that way. Will you talk about that, the difference between being a consumer and really taking that conviction on for yourself?
Okay. So I started to become interested in the idea of homeschooling. Partly, like you said, I was working 15 years at that time at a higher education institute. And as I was in student affairs, advising incoming students and freshmen and looking at the students, and I started to see, unfortunately, a dichotomy. And students who are succeeding, they are managing their time well, they have good social skill, they know what they want, they can pick a major and stick with it, versus the students who are like kind of lost. Kind of lost from what they do. And then so we start asking why. And there are loads of educational empirical research about what contribute to student success in college and how their college experiences shape them. And one major factor, and I would say the defining factor, is home. I'm not even talking about schooling options here. I'm just talking about home impact and parental involvement. So you could go to a traditional school and have great parent support, or you can be homeschooled and being borderline neglected, right? And so parents' involvement is really important, and it matches so well with the idea of lead learner. We are lead learner of our kids' education. A lot of times our kids catch us that wonder and that curiosity of life, not from books, but by me sitting in a car telling them 7 times, look at the beautiful trees. Okay, Mom, we got it. Look at a beautiful tree, look at it. And so that wonder and curiosity is what I think we really need to be convicted as parents that homeschooling is not to buy a big box curriculum or and say, okay, you need to check off all these boxes, these 7 strands, and go sit in front of a computer program and have somebody else teaches it, and we just kind of encourage them and hush them along the way. We are at the front of the line of my packs of ducks. I'm the mama duck leading those ducks into curiosity and wonder. I am not the person that's just kind of like shepherding them from behind, although sometimes I go that way too. But the idea of being convicted. So I was convicted. And say, wait, no, they really need to get it from me and get it from my family. And I just felt like a light bulb moment turn on. Like, man, I need to be tutoring. I need to be really invested in the curriculum. If they're doing Latin, I need to sit down and do Latin with them. I don't have to say, no, go do your Latin
and
participate. And they need to see me fail, right? Because I don't know everything. And a lot of times people come and say, Mom, how do you do this? And I'll be like, I don't know. Let's find out. And that's the idea of that, wow, that curiosity, that lifelong learning process, that they will see me that there's a lot of things that Mom don't know. I don't have the end all be all, but I have to learn how to learn it. I have to learn how to find out those information.
I love that.
Yeah.
Something else I've noticed about you, and she's a book rep, you guys, is that you really are passionate about books. Will you talk about that? Like, where did your passion for reading come from, and how did you start nurturing that?
Okay. It comes from when I was a young age. I have vivid memory of me hiding in the attic, just reading. And because of some traumatic events in my family was coming from a broken past. And my parents are neglectful. They didn't know how, but, they are loving me to the best of ability. So I was, I have materials, I have books. But my first memory is reading up in the attic in Taiwan next to the Buddha statue and the incense smoke. And for some reason, I just thought that that's my refuge. I love stories. I love novels. I love to learn about people's life. I really think that it brings me to a world that as a young child from an abusive home, I couldn't get to. But books bring me to America. It brings me to Africa if I'm learning about people in Africa. It actually helped me to be curious about the world that I don't even know existed. And growing up as I'm older and maturing and all the traveling experiences makes me understand that, yes, I can be reading a book on the plane, or I can occupy my mind with junk.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have learned that, if I have a good and wholesome book to read, that really nourishes my soul. And so I start seeking out those books.
Okay, so what are some of those books?
Oh, right now I'm actually reading a shepherd's Psalm 23. And the Shepherd's Look on Psalm 23 by Philip Keller.
Heard of this. Yeah.
And it was so fun because he is actually a shepherd in East Africa. And he brings light and illuminations to meaning of when the Bible says he anoints my head with oil. What does it mean? They really do the anointing with sheep to protect them from flies, from pesticides, and parasites. And so it was really like just illuminating and brings me appreciation for what David has wrote in Psalm 23. That's my personal reading. I also love some of the CC books. So one thing that I'm reading through is called the Practicing Affirmation book. And that is in the CC bookstore. It's a small little book, but the first few chapters just blows me away because for one reason or the other, I'm struggling to speak life to myself, to my kids, to my husband sometimes. And I realize that's a big problem. And if I dig deep down of why I think it's hard for me to praise and speak life-giving words rather than tearing down, it's because I myself think that I don't deserve it. For my abusive past, I felt unwanted, and therefore I don't think I deserve the glory. And I kind of feel even uncomfortable here, sitting here, because I feel like, oh, I don't want to be in the limelight, because that could be stealing from God's glory, or I'm undeserving. So it's really interesting that that book is leading me to a higher ground and a newer ground that says that, no, our God speak, and he speak praises, and people praise him. And because he loves us and he affirms us using his scripture, we ought to do the same to the people around us. And so that is really, and we ought to speak positive affirmation, and words have power. And if I were to affirm my kids instead of tearing them down, that actually helps them. That actually just lead them along much better than me correcting them all the time. Yes, they need correction, they need reproving, but that's not neglect the affirming side. That's not falling into the ditches of extremes. And so that book is really helping me to better myself as a parent. I still have a lot more to learn, but just learning every day. And then there's a new framework, and I try to catch myself, correcting, because I don't want, and my kids are in the middle years now, and I don't want to have them to grow up and being callous of my words and say, okay, mom, I know. Or what about what you're about to say, because coming out of your mouth is going to be another correction. And that's where teenagers' relationship gets estranged with their parents. And I don't want that. And I want to I kind of want to deconstruct my critical self and kind of construct this affirming, light-bringing parents.
Sure. Well, and I love what you're saying about, I think the concern of glorifying yourself is a healthy concern, but when you deconstruct it, it's like, okay, well, how can you still speak life? How can you still affirm a person? You can affirm the image of God in them.
Yes.
You can affirm the ways that they're reflecting his character, that goodness, that beauty, that truth. Those things can be affirmed, and they are not glorifying to the person. They're glorifying to the Lord.
Yes.
Like it's highlighting him, and that's how and why he made us in his image. And it all points back to God. So it really is a perspective shift.
Yes. And for example, some people would affirm kids on their academic achievement or their soccer skills, or when, their swimming team won. And then, but then that is affirming a worldly behavior. But what the book is talking about is to affirm the character that you see in them.
Right.
Oh, kiddo. Wow, you worked so hard on winning this swing meet, and you have practiced so hard. You persevered like Jesus persevered. So you're actually speaking life and give light to Jesus' traits and character instead of their own worldly achievement. So you see the nuances there?
Oh, absolutely.
It's very, very subtle, but yet we're pointing them to God with our words.
And you're calling them up to what Christ has intended them to be.
Yes, there are plenty of times I'll be like, you are righteous. You are righteous, so act like that. Right? I heard it from another wise mama that said that.
Yes. She's a friend of the podcast.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
So that book has been wonderful.
Hey everyone. This is a little annoying part where we have to break into the episode and tell you about some of the stuff going on. But this is super exciting. You're going to want to pay attention to this. Are you looking to become a better everyday educator? Join other homeschool parents in your area at a 2025 Practicum event. Hosted by a local classical conversations leader, every summer, these parent conferences provide an opportunity for new and experienced homeschool parents or parents thinking about homeschooling to gather, learn, and practice the classical arts. At this year's Practicum, you can practice the 15 skills of learning, and we're thrilled to begin using content from our brand new curriculum, the Math Map. We'll use the dimensional structure of mathematics to frame questions and find patterns to see the unseen. Sound confusing? You'll be surprised at how this approach works. This is a discussion for all ages to grow our classical education skills together. Participate in table talk discussion with other parents and learn how to engage your own students in the math conversation that transcends the ages. Discover how the classical skills of learning and the dimensional structure of mathematics helps us see and frame questions, find patterns, enables us to see the unseen, and better understand God and our universe. To find out where your local Practicum meets, just visit ccpracticum.com. That's ccpracticum.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Okay, so Yating, earlier today, we were talking about this phrase, trust the process. And I don't think it's a secret that a lot of people are concerned that CC is some sort of a multi-level marketing scheme, and they really just have a misconception about it. But one of the phrases that triggers people to think that it's that is trust the process. Talk to me about that and why that's not the right way to look at that phrase.
Yes. So as a book grad, I have the privilege of talking to a lot of families and getting their concerns and their outlook and their just review on CC. So that actually comes out a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that myself, when I heard the word trust the process, I'm like, but you're asking us to be intellectual here. How are you blindly leading us when you say trust the process? Well, we're classical mamas. We need to define our terms here. One of the 15 classical skills is definition. That's define that. When I think what Lee and Cece was saying about trust the process, she really is defining the process as trivium. So trust the trivium. We can trust God because the trivium is how God designed little kids and how God designed their brain to learn, the way of learning from grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric stages of learning. So we can trust that. We're not trusting in curriculum that just plug into whatever needs that we have or a invisible process. We're trusting God, and that's natural way of how little kids learn. And CC is providing tools and guidelines along that trivium. That's what I meant. I think that we need to redefine that term, trust the process.
Yeah, trusting the process is not about necessarily trusting a person or a book.
Or a main curriculum. It's about trusting God's design.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's an innate design. It's the way that you naturally do things, whether you realize it or not. You're always starting at the grammar stage.
Yes.
And then you're moving into the dialectic stage, and then you move to rhetoric, whether you do it quickly or slowly.
Yeah.
That is the process.
And whether or not you use CC as your homeschool or not, it's still the process. The process is still there, whether or not you're in CC.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
love that.
define that term. It's trusting the trivium.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, before we end our conversation, speaking of, growing up in Taiwan, you told me about how you came to know the Lord.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of children and what the Lord can do through a child. And I would love for you to tell your story of salvation, just for anybody listening who might feel like the small things are insignificant.
Okay. So like I said, I grew up reading books. I have vivid memory of me hiding in the attic, reading books beside a Buddha statue and incense sticks. So I grew up Buddhist. And all my family were Buddhists. None of them are Christians. We have never heard about Jesus Christ. When I was 10, I had to move from Taiwan to Singapore because my family migrated there. So I spent all my formative years from age 10 to age 17 in Singapore. When I first moved here, Taiwan is a Chinese-speaking country, and Singapore is an English-speaking country, and I only learned ABCs when I moved there, so when I was 10. I only started to understand that, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. And nobody wanted to be my friend because all of a sudden I was the tallest girl, because when you're a 10-year-old girl, you grow faster than boys. And so I was the tallest girl in class, but speaks no English. And I was ostracized and bullied, and I felt really lonely. The only people who will be my friend are these 3 wonderful kids. And they're not even from my school. And we just met them by God's grace. And they say, "Can I be your friend?" And they brought me to church. And that's how I was first introduced to Jesus Christ. They are little kids. They are not, and these kids are the kids of missionary parents that were sent from America. So thank you. If you are teaching your kids to be missional and friendly to people that they don't know, or the loneliest kid on the other end of the playground, thank you, personally, because this is how I was brought to Jesus Christ. And that's why it influenced my thinking about my philosophy in homeschool. I always tell my kids that difference is not bad. Difference is just different. So you go look for that loneliest kid in the dining hall or the playground, and you go say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. Can we play together?" That is very, very powerful. And I want my kids to do that. And that actually translates into how we go in to every community day and approach it. Because there's always new families joining us. And because of my work, we travel to communities and we do community visit every time. And there are differences between communities. And I want my kids to process that, to embrace that, and to be okay with it. So my favorite thing to do is to take them to a new restaurant and then say, "Look, I'm going to order for you, and you're going to eat whatever I cook, or I order, and you're just going to eat it. You might not like it, but you don't have the privilege to say that I don't like it until you try it. You try everything once, then you're entitled to your own opinion. But that's still your own opinion. It's not the truth. It's the opinion." And so we try anchovies on pizza. We try, I don't know, there's just so many different things. We try to stomp on making our own udon noodle by stomping it. And then they say that it kind of tastes like feet a little bit. But at least you tasted it, and we tried. And I want my kids to be exposed to this. And that's how beautiful homeschooling is for us. Because we homeschool, we can have the freedom and the flexibility to buy a low rate ticket in the low travel season to go and experience the world and the differences that way. So I want my kids to be missional that way. And all these fun stuff or the adventurous stuff that we're doing actually broaden their horizon. And make them understand that there are people that are different from us and embrace that. And one day, maybe they will go to a Buddhist little girl and say that, "Hey, would you like to come to my church? Would you like to know about Jesus Christ?" And that's what know God and making known is to me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. You guys, she has multiple social media pages and platforms, but would you just share a few of those platforms that you use if people want to reach out to you or thank you for your story?
Okay. So I travel and I go to weird places like free libraries.
Yeah.
So I have a collection. Some people collect stamps. I just collect libraries. And so every time I go to a new place, I'll go to the library. I went to one yesterday in North Carolina. And so that is actually an online collection. And on Facebook, it's called Eden Books and Travel Journal. On Instagram, I have the handle called Dragonfly Heller. And then I also manages the Central Indiana CC Facebook and Instagram page. And on those pages, I highlight some of the materials and curriculum and books and resources that's on CC Bookstore. But I also recommend some of the good and just wholesome books and life-giving books that I have come across.
I love it. So you guys go follow Yating, thank her for her story, and get some great book recommendations.
Okay. Thank you for
Yating.
having me.